Morning. This is March 18th. We are having a special meeting of the Board of Education to discuss our budget process. And I'm going to turn the meeting over to Vice President Beatrice LeBron, who is also the chair of the Finance Committee. Vice President LeBron.
Thank you, President Elliott. So thank you to everyone for coming out early this morning for an emergency board meeting. And I just want to share that yesterday I received a phone call from.
You're muted, Vice President LeBron.
Somebody tried to call me and I'm on the phone. I had to drop my daughter off. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes? Okay.
Yes.
So I apologize for that. Someone just tried to call me. So I was asked if I wanted to see an early, a draft of the budget book, and I agreed to come grab a copy and go through it. And it was my first time laying eyes on the actual draft. And so that's why this meeting is taking place this early, because there were some sections removed, in particular, section 5, if you go back to last year's budget book, which really is the central office details. So it includes the Board of Education, the superintendent, cabinet, it includes the deputy superintendent's budgets, and so forth. And that entire section and the details of how we spend dollars in those areas had been removed. I did go back to our crosswalk that we were presented last month to kind of view some of the details that were presented to the board in an Excel spreadsheet. And I think that, in hindsight, I probably should have done some more insistence on due diligence on having a better visual and understanding of what some of the languages meant. And also there is a subsection in 5 where it says this is going to be removed, but positions were going to be allocated somewhere else within the book. I was not able to locate specifically an area that said here are all the positions in these different areas of section 5, which is central office and the administration pieces, including the Board of Education. And I also felt that it wasn't transparent enough for the community. And as we're having conversations as we move forward through these budget deliberations around the structural deficit and how to close it, that we don't have enough information as to how we're spending dollars at central office. So because we voted on this to remove this piece, I'm asking this board to rescind that resolution and create a new resolution to have that piece put back in. So I'll stop there and see if anybody has questions. I know some folks were not able to hear some of this last night, so I'll stop there.
Vice President LeBron, I do have one point of order on that. Only because, so the first time that this was agreed on by the board, it was.
I can't hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes.
Okay. What are you saying?
I don't think Vice President LeBron can hear you though.
Okay. I do want to clarify for a point of order, the first time that the board did consider this was via a nod. If those of you recall, it was a nod that was given to the finance team to have them move forward with the planned format. So there was not a resolution. I do recommend that a resolution be drafted if a change in decision is made. However, just to make sure that there's documentation as to the direction for the finance department.
I see Carlene, your hand's up. Can you all hear me now?
Yes.
Okay. And I apologize, Carlene.
Yes, I just wanted to clarify a couple things. So first of all, Vice President LeBron, I wasn't aware that you were given a copy of the draft. I hadn't even seen it. Even when it was brought, the email was sent out, I had not yet been provided a copy of the draft budget book for my review. So, I think that that's a lesson for all of us learn too, that, if we choose to share information, perhaps we bring in the source individuals that were working on it to help avoid some confusion, that would help the situation versus adding to possible consternation. I have asked Terry, we met last night and again this morning, I think probably, and again, I don't know which other board members have seen the draft book at this point in time. Like I said, my first view of it was yesterday afternoon when the email came in. I have since received a full copy of it, my own copy, as of this morning. But I think it would be important that if other commissioners have not yet received it, that Terry could take us through this morning and show where the information is that could not be previously located. We have walked through it. I think it'll help ease concerns, and certainly we can pick the conversation up from there after Terry takes us through. So Terry, are you able to share your
I'm
copy?
sorry, Carlene, you're saying that in the draft, so other commissioners don't have the draft. I'm the chair of finance. I was asked to give a overview very quickly and give some feedback before I went to print and production. So are you saying that in the book, the details, the entire details of what section 5, as it was last year, is in that book draft right now?
I want to have Terry take us through.
Section 5 had lots of details in central office and board and the superintendent's, details of our budget, which again, we should be very transparent on how we spend dollars, especially in those areas.
What I was saying was that I would like Terry to take us through so you can see exactly what's there, because I think there may have been a misunderstanding as far as the information being available. That's all. So if he could pull it up and walk us through.
I would like him to, if he's going to walk us through, I want him to walk us through to last year so that the community and the commissioners can see what exactly was in last year's and what he is proposing for this year. I do not want to have that information presented without the details of what the comparison is side by side.
I don't know how easily, Terry, you can do that right now. Do you have the other information?
I do. Just want to be clear. It does not look like last year's. That was in the crosswalk that the department information was going to be reduced, and we were going to have the departments listed by total budget, personnel, and non-personnel, and that was listed out in the crosswalk. So no, it doesn't look like last year's, and that's kind of the whole point of the redesign. That was like one of the points of it. So no, it doesn't look like last year's.
The question, though, that Vice President LeBron is asking is if you just shared, Carlene, that the information that she's requesting is there. Terry, can you go to the new budget brief and show Vice President LeBron and the rest of the board the central office information? That's really I think the bottom line that Vice President LeBron is asking. Is that there?
Sure. So
Or where is it?
am I
We can see your screen.
not Zoom? You can see a budget book page that says
Yeah.
position summary. Okay.
Yes.
I have two screens, so I just want to make sure. So, like in the crosswalk states that we were going to put all of the full-time equivalent information all in one location, and starting on page 29 of this document, and it is labeled 29, we're starting with the same table that we had in last year's book, which is laid out as a comparison between these high level categories. This is the same table that was in last year's, just produced for this year. And then we're coming down to our total FTEs of the 5593.47. And then we show our capital FTEs there as an informational item. That's not actually in the dollars of the book because the capital fund's not in the budget book. And then we're going to have another, and remember, this is in draft form. We're still working on this. So these tables have some X's in them where we're going to reference certain pages. And so what this table over here is doing is referencing the FTEs that are in the schools, in the programs, and then in the departments. And we're having this table come down and reconcile back to this 5,593. So you can reference the pages that these tables will be on, which I'm going to scroll down to in a second. Then we're going to go into FTEs by comparison for every single school right here. So you can see every single school building here has its comparison down to that same number that was just on the page we're just showing, the 3,800. Then we're going to go into the programs, grouped up just like they used to be, programs, early childhood and support. So this is the same kind of layout. This was that second item on that table where it ties out all the FTEs. And then it comes down into the chief's departments, and then a couple other support areas, food service, health services, and transportation. Comes on the 800 number. Then what we did was we wanted to go into the departments. So this is where the FTEs are laid out by department. Here's the Board of Education, the EPO administration, and then this comes down to, so these are kind of departments that don't report to a deputy superintendent. They kind of stand on their own. Those are our 5 kind of higher level departments. And then we've got 2 kind of subsections here for each deputy superintendent and the departments that they oversee. And then all that comes down to a total FTE right there, which traces back to that same table up top. Then what we wanted to do was wanted to give a little more detail on that first same table where it breaks out those same categories: teachers, civil service, admin, TAs, and paras. And then we wanted to show where those were. So then we wanted to start listing out every single school. This is just 23 data. So this isn't a comparison anymore. This is every single department in school laid out in these categories. So then we can drive down through this FTE table. There's your school total. There's that 3,800 number still. And then you're going to go down through the programs. You're going to get down to that same 800 number. You're going to drive down through the departments. Here's those same departments we just saw up top. Down to that 912, which comes down to that same 5,593 number, which is referenced back to page 24. So the reader can kind of take the 2 pages and tie them together and kind of say, okay, this is the same numbers that are up on that top table. And this one lays out the details of that. And then one more FTE table of like kind of a historical overview. So this is those same categories. They're on that very first table. This is the same table right here. And then we kind of give like a 7-year layout of the change in those. So you can kind of see some like historical data there. So that's kind of like the approach we took with the FTEs, kind of laying them out in different formats. And I don't know if there's any questions in there. Do you want me to go into like the information we have in
It
the?
is not with FTEs, Terry. It's the fact that the details of the budget for central office administration, including the superintendent and the Board of Education and other departments that fall under there, are primarily central office. Again, section 5, the details are completely gone. And if really the budget is just schools, but the community will ask about how are we spending dollars in these areas? These are critical areas, lots of money there too. I do want to put in, someone put in the chat, I think Commissioner Powell, that she's fascinated that the CFO hadn't seen a copy. It's my understanding, Terry, that you had a copy of it as well, but I'm not clear on that. And I don't know what the internal process is for folks to review. I just know that I was notified that there was a copy draft for me to review. So
I
again, the request is that we put section 5 as it is with the details of how we spend money in central office back into the budget book.
Okay, can I do? I was working on the budget book, so it was in progress. That's why I didn't give it to CFO Pierce yet. I wasn't done with it. I wanted to give her a final project, a final product to review. Like we're still working on it. So
May I ask a
this is
question?
the draft.
May I ask a question? If it's not finished and it's still in draft and you're still working on it, and your supervisor hasn't seen it, her supervisor hasn't seen it, how did it get to Vice President LeBron?
I can answer that question. I had received a copy of the budget book and how it was going to look. In prior years, the budget book was submitted in a binder format. We were trying a new format that actually binds the document together with staples. And so we wanted to make sure that the board was going to be okay with not having a binder and be okay with the document as it was. I shared some photos of that with you, Dr. Jallo, and I spoke to District Clerk Wade. And because we were concerned about the board not knowing that the format was not going to be a binder, the recommendation was made that I share the aesthetic version with Commissioner LeBron to make sure that we were on the right track, because we're going to have staff working over the weekend to print the book out.
And I just want to say, like, the issues I have, obviously there's lots of things that we actually need to correct anyway in this entire process. The last couple of weeks have been, you know, the most hectic I've ever worked in the district. So there are things we're going to have to do to fix whatever's happening as we move forward. But so my feedback isn't on the aesthetics. My feedback is, wait a minute, there's a whole entire detail section. And if we're saying we're going to be more transparent, and let me just say this is one subsection of it. There are lots of parts that I actually do love, and I do think it is more aesthetically pleasing, easier to follow, especially the school profiles. So it's not a criticism to the entire book. It's a criticism to the fact that there's a whole entire subsection that I know for a fact this community will want to see, and that they will want to know how we spend dollars and what dollars are going to in central office. So we can't just say we're gonna give a high level overview, because that's what's in there. It's a very high level overview. Here's our entire budget, here's a few positions. And it's confusing because if I don't know that the superintendent's office has all of these other people that report up to her and what a cabinet looks like, I'm not going to get that from this actual draft book. So this is where I'm at. I'm not supporting the budget book as it stands without detailed information about central office, including the Board of Education's budget. And so this is why I requested this meeting, so that the board can make a determination if you all want to support it without that information and just a high level overview. I've done my part as the finance chair to say I don't support it. I don't think it's transparent enough. And I know that this community will ask for that information. And it's not enough to just hide it onto the website.
Vice President LeBron, I know that President Elliott had to come back in on her phone. And so if you're able to see the waiting room, I do see hands up right now. I have Commissioner Powell's hand is up, Commissioner Simmons' hand is up. I saw Commissioner CFO Pierce, your hand was up, but I don't know if you still wanted to speak.
Kalia, can you call on folks, because I can't see them. I have to.
No problem.
Thank you.
No problem. Commissioner Powell.
I know it's not the purpose of our call, but from the aesthetic side of things, let me just answer Marisol's question. First of all, I don't know why one person would be allowed to speak for all of us. She has no idea what our idea of what a good aesthetic would be, but I can tell you that a stapled copy can't possibly lay flat when we're working through it. So I could support something that's like plastic ring bound, like we've gotten our CIP document in the past, but not a stapled copy. It has to be able to lay flat on the desktop.
Okay, I just want to respond that it wasn't just the aesthetic of it being binded, not binded. That's not my decision. It was to look at the layout of it. So just for clarity, I personally don't care if it's binded on a ring binder. I do not care about those details. So I just want to be very clear about that.
The next hand up is Commissioner Simmons.
Thank you, Kalia. I want to just really acknowledge kind of the same sentiments as far as aesthetics. I'm more concerned with content and knowing that the community is getting transparent information that's very clear, concise, and understandable, especially the fact that we have an influx of dollars. People are extremely concerned about how are we putting these dollars or allocating these dollars to support our children first and foremost. And if we are not able to display that in this budget book in a way that's understandable, or if there's missing information, we need to be about fixing that. So we want to make sure we are being transparent. So I'm supporting anything that's going to make the communication more transparent. Speaking of transparency, I really have to say that we can't pretend that there's no dysfunction. It's showing up in the work. At this point, from the board to administration, there's a level of dysfunction that is unacceptable to serving the children and the families of this community. We need to get it together and get it right, because we have to answer to the community. That's all I need to say.
I don't see any additional hands raised at this time. Unless Commissioner Powell, do you have a new hand up? Commissioner Powell? Okay, well, I don't see any additional hands apart from Commissioner Powell's at this time.
Do you want me to show the dollar department information?
Yes, Terry, I think that that's important because we haven't gotten to that point yet, and that's part of the conversation. So if we could look at that now, thank you.
So what was laid out in the crosswalk was, and what we did is we researched the other big fours to see if they had departmental pages, and two of them do not have departmental pages, and one of them has just printouts from their financial systems for each department. They don't actually make department pages. So what we were doing is we were trying to come up with a layout that would be understandable and concise. And so we started with this top level. This is the budget for each department. So just like the layout we had for the FTEs, these 5 don't report to a deputy. And we have those 2 sections broken out for each of the departments that report up to each deputy. And then this is the total budget. And then we come down to another table that shows the personnel cost of each of those departments. So if you can look at the FTE tables, then this is the cost for those FTEs for each of these departments. So those are attached to those. And then a third table of non-personnel operating costs, and what we refer to as the operating budgets of each of those departments laid out in the same format. And that is what we presented when we did the redesign. So I just wanted to, that's where we're at.
CFO Pierce has her hand up.
Yes, I wanted to remind the commissioners as well that you had received a line-by-line full disclosure of the entire general fund budget. And so that material was in the packet that was delivered to you Tuesday. That is more information than has ever been given in the past. Again, where we go from today is exactly, we would need to know exactly based on what Terry just showed you, because again, there was no intent not to be totally completely transparent. The intent was actually to meet our community's request, and that was to make the book more user-friendly. And we had been told by the community that there was too much information within the book, that it was not easy for them to understand. So if we had, I'm happy to listen to hear what you have to say with regard to what, after now Terry's gone through both portions, both the staffing as well as the expenditures and the tying back to show the correlation, we would need to know exactly what more you're looking for to make a determination as far as what we can add. The SRSA and ARP information is delivered to you in a quarterly format as required. So you do have that information. We will have links available, again, that people can access that information. It'll be kept right up to date. So again, please, whatever information you feel is still missing between those two sections now being spelled out, we would need to know your desires, because we have to determine how much of a delay then in the delivery of the budget book there will be based on the amount of information that you are requesting to add.
Please remember, like, the entire budget is also up in the front, laid out by function, which is what the new layout was going to be. The information is also up there as a total district.
Terry, can you take us to the front part just to show, so that, again, because not everyone has had the opportunity to view the book.
Yeah,
That's
sure.
the
Well,
unfortunate thing.
yeah, but while he's pulling that up, I just want to add again that I'm specifically requesting section 5. There were other sections that were removed that I also don't think needed to be in there, like the entire strategic plan that's available online. I would support a hyperlink, a direction to where the landing page is, and so forth. But again, section 5 is the entire section that I'm requesting goes back in there. We can't just focus in on schools only and pretend that there's not this entire function of central office and details, because that doesn't tell me, that says partnerships. I don't know what partnerships mean in the context of that line that you just showed, that chart. It also doesn't show the number of consultants we're hiring, how dollars are spent in the superintendent's cabinet versus the Board of Education versus other departments, again, like legal and human capital and so forth, functions of central office. So I don't know if I'm not speaking clearly enough that I'm requesting the entire section 5 be put back with that level of detail. But let me just, if I'm not, please let me know. Just let me know if it's not making sense. I just need to know at this point.
It makes sense. So given that request, I think it's important because we do have a process that's a timeline associated with the process. Given that understanding, and I know that hasn't been voted on yet, but I think it's important to talk about how long would it take to recreate section 5, to put it back in the book? And what are we looking at as far as estimations there? Terry, that's a question I think for you, correct?
I understand. Yes, Dr. Myers, I was trying to think about it.
Okay.
It's a big,
It's hard to
question. That's a lot of work. We'd
I
have to
just
put them
looked it up.
back
Terry,
in the. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, Terry, I just looked it up, and in last year's book, it was 100 pages that would be added back into the book. So that would be a significant amount of time, labor hours. And I know that was one of the concerns that we had talked about, was the amount of time the book was taking to put together. So it's in last year's book, it appears to be about 100 pages would have to go back in. Sorry, Terry, I just wanted to make people aware of the significance.
Yeah, and we would have to maybe like redesign them so they, I know each department's like 3 or 4 pages, maybe redesign them to like 1 page each or something along those lines. Because the information is laid out different now and more concise to the reader, and keeping in the same format that we already have the rest of the book. You want it all laid out the same. So we would have to redesign those. We couldn't use our old design, I don't think. It wouldn't look the same. It would be confusing. So we'd have to redesign them, because we have templates that we used to use for years. And then we just had to make all new templates this year. So I don't know how long all those templates would take. I'd have to talk to my team and try to find out. I don't know how long redesign takes. That's something you go through a process. You develop those pages and see what kind of hiccups you get, and then you work through those. Hard to take a guess on the spot.
And
Couple
so,
weeks. Couple weeks.
So it was my understanding that some of this information was going to be shared through the website. And I wonder, Terry, if rather than trying to incorporate it right now into the book, we can work that into the final budget book. If this could be put together and hyperlinked on the budget website the way that our teams were working on putting some other documents together.
Are you referring to the department pages that Vice President LeBron is requesting? Is that what?
Yes. So is it possible to put the information in a hyperlink and then have it formatted for the final book?
My only concern with that request, Marisol, is that we have to deliberate on these things. So as we're talking about closing the structural deficit and only focusing on schools and what's in that book, we're not going to be able to like look at those departments. At this point, I am going to recommend, this would be my recommendation, that we go back to a ring binder, because we can start the deliberations on what's already there in terms of the schools and the other departments. It is a very high level. And I just want to be clear, I'm not making an accusation that it's intentionally to be not less transparent, but it's not transparent. And so I just want to be I want to be transparent that I do not believe that the way that high level overview is not transparent enough for our community. So if we start the deliberations, that section can be completed, and I would need a timeline. Throwing it out there weeks on end does not make me comfortable, not knowing what the timeline is going to actually be and when we can expect it. But if we do it as a ring binder, it could be the last section, if you will, that we deliberate on and do the Q&A back and forth with the administration.
We can't just redesign these. Like we've put in hundreds of hours on this redesign, and I understand that you want the information, but this was what we agreed upon and this is what we worked towards. I can't just make it faster. It's not how it works.
Well, Terry, this is
lot
where
of-
we're at. We're not, I personally, again, I'm going to let the board vote. If the board wants to vote on a budget book that does not contain detailed information around central office, that is the will of the board. I, Commissioner Beatrice LeBron, cannot accept a budget book without that information. And I don't think it's right. And I don't care. I am sorry that you've worked on hundreds of hours, but we obviously have some dysfunction that we need to address moving forward. We're not there yet. We're still in the middle of all of this stuff, even with the state. So as we move forward, we will figure out a different process in the future so that none of us are here again. However, this is where we're at right now. So I need a timeline. And if you can't give me a timeline, then I will ask your supervisor to then give a timeline. Somebody's got to have a timeline. But I cannot accept the budget book without detailed information of subsection 5 in our previous draft budget books. That's where I'm at.
It looks like President Elliott, are you trying to speak? I thought I saw. Okay, maybe not. Go ahead, Vice President LeBron. I'm not seeing anyone else with hands raised, unless I know you're using your phone, President Elliott, so let us know.
what I just wanted to clarify is what Vice President LeBron said. She's requesting section 5. So we need to produce that. I also heard her say that we could look at that towards the end. So if we produced a budget book that was in a binder and that we can add that section as soon as that's able to be completed, that would be satisfactory. I just want to make sure, want to do a say back and make sure that's what I heard.
Correct, Dr. Mary Smalls, and we
Okay.
will, Kali and I can work on making sure that deliberations around that section are
Okay.
at the third part of the deliberations versus the first two.
Okay. That's something that we could do and we could fulfill.
It's a complex
I have a
thing. I
question.
have to talk to my
Terry-
team about. It is
Yeah,
not-
Terry, can let me interrupt you for a minute. If you don't have an answer, you don't have an answer. I'd rather you say you don't know,
I
you have to
don't.
consult. So you don't know. So let's stop, let's not beat that dead horse, right? You don't know. And I don't think anybody on this screen knows. So don't give false, not false, don't throw dates out there and you're not sure. Take the time and energy. And really, it's not on you, it's on the superintendent. The superintendent has to work with her team to figure out, because it's not just you who produces the book, right? It's a collaboration of different departments coming together to produce a book. So it's the superintendent who should answer. It's the superintendent who can get back to this body and say, it's going to take between this time and that time, or this is our timeline, or this is a date. So I see you struggling to answer something that you are only part of, right? So let that be. I think you also, if you're thinking of changing the book or changing the binder or changing whatever it is you might be changing, that you really have to have a serious conversation about timeline. Because I think the book is what this organization uses to be the foundation of your deliberations. If I'm correct around that, and you need this product in order to have those deliberations in earnest, then you need to have a conversation also about not only when the book is available in whatever form it's going to be in, but when will you be able to still have something to ground your deliberations with. And so that's also a discussion that I think either the superintendent has to be part of her response to you, or you have the conversation here. But otherwise you'll be deliberating without something to deliberate on, right? So I think you have to figure that out as well. Okay, but we've gone through many dates over the last 7 days. So I would rather you wait and really have a codified date that you're sure that you can commit to and feel comfortable that you're going to meet that date, because we just can't keep missing deadlines here. It's affecting too many other people, including yourselves.
Can we make it
Dr.
clear?
Jallo, I just want to respond, because yes, I can make sure that I coordinate it, but the folks who are working on it it is the folks in the finance department. So if they
Right, but Leslie, this should not be aired here.
Oh, I
This should
agree.
not be aired here in front of your board. This is
Agreed.
something that you guys can work together, whatever departments have to collaborate, and then you say, I've collaborated, and here is what we know we all stand by that we can do. Right now, I only hear one person talking, and it's making me nervous, right? Because I know that it's a collaborative effort to create a book, right? So that's all I'm saying. Not here. I don't want to hear it here. I'll be honest with you. This is something that should be discussed amongst you. And then you come back to your board and say, hey, we got it. This date, we're going to have the numbers, we're going to have a book, we're going to have binders, we're going to have 20 copies in your hand by this date. And you can feel confident that you could use this book to begin your deliberations. That's all I'm saying.
Agreed. And that's why I just wanted to clarify with Vice President LeBron that it would be acceptable, right? If the vote went that way to include Section 5, that we could add that later. We absolutely need to take this conversation offline and work internally to make sure we have appropriate timelines, systems and structures in place to double check, to make sure we have fail safes and all of that. Completely agree.
I just have one other question selfishly. I meet with the state ed in about 15 minutes. Is there anything in this book, in this budget, additional information that they need to know before we collaborate and deliberate for the next 2 hours? Is anything that's part of this discussion something that they need to know?
think from my perspective, that the original agreed upon budget book is going to have, if the vote goes that way, is going to have more detail relative to central office, including superintendent and board. From my perspective, that's what they would need to know. So the next steps are, I'm assuming that there would need to be a motion created to move in that direction or not. And then a
Correct.
vote.
And so I'm gonna ask for that motion now, and I don't know.
I'm sorry, can I ask one clarifying question? So there's gonna
Yes.
be a motion to direct that the budget book be changed absent the information about how long it will take to change the book?
Yes, and that section 5 is added again. So can I get that motion now?
So moved.
Second.
Talia, did you record that?
Yes, I did.
So it's been motioned by Commissioner Adams, seconded by Commissioner Camille Simmons. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
What's the discussion? I'm sorry, what are we voting on?
Yep.
What are we voting on?
The motion to direct that the budget book be amended, be changed, and a section 5 be added. And I think we noted that we don't have the information about how long that change would take at the moment.
Okay.
So yes, there should if there should be a discussion. If there's no discussion, the vote can go ahead.
So should I be asking for a discussion now?
Yep, there's been motioned and seconded and discussion.
Commissioner Adams?
So in my mind, could we have a maximum date, like 2 weeks at the most, or 1 week at the most, or 3 weeks at the most? Can we have, can we put some type of end to this time frame that we're going to be waiting on the that section to be added?
I can answer that question. And Commissioner Adams, I would have to say that I'm uncomfortable in giving a deadline at this point in time because of the fact that we have tried in earnest to give other acceptable deadlines, and it's uncomfortable then if they cannot be met when we don't have the information in front of us right now to make that decision. I don't know how many manpower hours it's going to take to accomplish that task. I would not be fair for you or for me or Terry's team to state a date in the future that I can't attest to. I have no information to work from to do that. I apologize, but I can't.
Well, let me say this. There has to be a deadline. We can't continue to go on like this. There has to be a deadline. We've got to get this done. We can't continue to go on in the future, and whoever's supposed to give information, let's get the information. But I'm not leaving here without there being a deadline. So
Can I interject?
Sure.
You need the finance department, communications department, somebody to proofread. They have to figure out how all those departments are going to come together to produce a book. So the administration has to figure out amongst themselves how long, like you might want to say, listen, you have to let me know by 12 o'clock how long it's going to take. Something like that. But until they get together and figure out amongst their different departments how they're going to do it, any date that they give you, even if they do give you a date, you're not going to be sure of that date.
So let me say this then, let's to Dr. Jallo's point, what she's just said in terms of everybody getting together and working out what the date should be. But let me get a deadline on that. When can we do that? Can that be worked out today? Or when can that be worked out? So I'm gonna leave that to the superintendent, that we come up, that you all get together and you tell us what's a reasonable date that we can expect to have this budget book.
Okay.
So Dr. Myers-Smalls, can you give us a date before we leave today on when you all will get together to give us a timeline? So it could be like, yes, we're gonna meet today and Monday, and we'll give you a timeline at the Tuesday meeting or the Thursday board business meeting.
We can give you an update at the Tuesday meeting. What is that?
It's the budget.
It's a special meeting, the budget presentation. We'll give you an update at that time.
Commissioner Adams and President Elliott, is that okay with you all as well?
It's okay.
Okay, I see Commissioner Malloy's hand up.
Yeah.
I know, I'm trying to scoot back and forth, so I do see Commissioner Malloy's hand's been up. Commissioner Malloy?
Thank you. I guess I'm just a little uncomfortable voting on anything today without the dates, as other people have mentioned. We need a hard stop, or we need a date before we can even take a vote, in my opinion. I think that needs to come from our superintendent. I think that directive needs to be given to our finance department. We need a hard stop. We need a date before we can reasonably, we need a date when we can expect to receive this budget book as board members, so that we can process it and we can put all those other things in. We can add section 5 back, but ultimately we need a date. Otherwise, it's kind of moot. I don't see the point of us even taking a vote right now if we don't have a specific date in mind. Thanks.
Yeah, so I just want to clarify that we're motioning to put the section 5 back, and that when that section 5 back will be added is a separate issue that's lingering out here. And while I do agree with you that I'm very frustrated myself, Commissioner Malloy, about like not even being able to have a date to understand, because that information should already be a part of this process anyway, whether they formatted it for the book or not. They should have that information, because this is the budget piece. So I'm confused myself about that piece, but what I will add is that the motion right now at hand is to agree whether that should even be, section 5 should be added or not, and that is the will of the board or not. That's what we're motioning right now, albeit that the fact that we don't have a date of when that's going to happen. I just want to put that out there. That's what we're motioning.
I see Commissioner Simmons' hand.
Well, just to follow up real quick, Adrian, when we motioned, you had said that we needed a date. Is that?
Nope, you don't need a date. I mean, if it's the will of the board that, that the motion is the motion, I think I just wanted to make sure everyone was clear, because I thought we heard that we didn't know how long it would take. So I didn't want the potentially are voting on a resolution that given timelines for when things have to be completed, potentially couldn't be, enacted. So that was I just wanted to get some clarification on that, because you are voting on a resolution for something to be added to the book, but there is no timeline for how long that would take at the moment.
Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and thank you for acknowledging me, Kalia. I wanted to state, Terry, first and foremost, I wanna, maybe I've got something wrong here, but I wanna thank you for the work that you have put on based on what you understood in our original voting to lay out the budget book a certain way. Based on that, you delivered what you understood, and as it's being assessed and all this broken communication that's happening. I'm a new commissioner and I'm a little confused about it all, but You tried to deliver based on what you understood was okayed and requested. I do agree that some additional details would be helpful for the book, but for the sake of what's being discussed right now, my point of discussion is, what if they get together, the administration comes together and says, it's going to take us another 3 months, because what Terry has expressed is we've changed the layout. We've got different templates. It's not just a matter of changing numbers and then throwing new pages in. This is a whole collaborative and complicated and comprehensive process that has to take place. So how long are we as a board prepared to, like, what is our baseline or our timeline that we're looking for? Because we can't tell them to fit a timeline, but what if it's 3 months? What is the repercussions for not having a budget if it takes another 3 months? And that's, I'm just throwing a number out there. What if they say 6 months? So what does that look like for us as a board? Are we comfortable knowing that it could take quite some time to get this information? Like, I need to know that part.
Yeah, I'm going to address that piece actually. So they should not be building a budget if they don't know the details of what's in that budget. So that's problematic. That's a whole other layer of problems if they don't know how central office is spending dollars. Now they're talking about a reformatting issue. It should not take 3 months. It should not take 6 months. And this is what we've been dealing with for weeks and weeks right now, where people don't know how to give answers. I don't have a timeline. We also, like Dr. Jallo mentioned, there's multiple people. It's not just Terry. So Terry's the numbers person, he's the budget person, but it does go to communications. It then has to go to the print shop. There's people that do editing to review any typos and double check and runs on numbers. But that information, the details of how we spend dollars in central office, they better have that information, because that's part of a budget. They may not have it in the same format. And I'm okay with going to Tuesday to get a timeline. And even as a solution, have suggested that is the last piece that we deliberate on as a board. But their timeline has to be this budget season, one way or the other. Because like Marisol mentioned a few conversations ago, they said that they were going to hyperlink it to the website. So if they were going to hyperlink it to the website, they can reformat it and stick it in the budget book. Because once that budget book is done, it does go to city council. It is a public document for anybody in the community to see. And then we have the final book, which is after the votes happen for both the board and city council.
Commissioner Simmons, it won't take 3 months. What it's a matter of, we'll meet today and on Monday. We have deliberations on April 26th and then again on May 5th. So we need to build a timeline that makes sure that we are thorough in reformatting, that we are doing the proofing work, and also working in collaboration with the communications department to print. So we will look through all of that, build that in, and we'll be able to come back. But it won't take 3 months. It won't take 6 months.
Yeah, let me be clear, those were just loose examples. Those were exaggerated examples. There's no thought process that I thought it would take that long, because I don't want anyone to think that I think like that. But I'm just saying, if the timeline that you all come back with is really crazy, because we still don't, our budget is still coming together now. We've been waiting, the timeline's been shifting. So it's plausible that we may have a timeline that doesn't work for us. And so I'm asking the commissioners, where do we fall on this if administration comes back with a timeline that, like, how does that affect us? The state's been waiting, that type of thing. How does that impact us as a district if we're putting it off because this information is not here?
So I just want to clarify, we're not putting our budget deliberations. We already voted and shifted the calendar. What we're voting on is to add an entire section back, which at that point, we would wait to do the deliberations for that section last, so we actually, if you look at the calendar, how we voted on it, and even the budget deliberation sessions, in the sessions, it just says to be determined, because we hadn't even seen a budget book yet. So we didn't even know. In the past, we would do it as section, 1 through 5 for the first session, the second session, 5 through 7, and then, 8 through 9. But we knew that sections were going to be removed, or we'll create sections to get through it. But we don't have the final book yet. Now, the superintendent is expected to present to us on Tuesday a high-level overview on the budget. We don't ask questions in that session either. But questions can start going into this, section 1 or session 1 of questioning, or round 1 of questionings in the question log. But then also during the deliberations, we go into details of each subsection, if you will.
Okay,
I know it's
that's
a little
helpful. So the
confusing,
section
but-
can be delayed for questioning. It can be delayed.
Yes, to the
Okay,
last,
thank you. That's
this
helpful.
section added back to give them time can be the very last thing that we do question log rounds, the third round, and also the last deliberation.
I can't raise my hand, so I just wanted to just clarify the motion and also share some information that will be helpful for folks. The motion on the table is to amend, I'm going to read it exactly as it is. Motion to change the format of the draft 22-23 budget book to reinsert section 5 into the document. I want to share that Vice President LeBron is correct. I have the budget dates right in front of me. The first iteration of questions are due from the board to the administration on March 29th. That does give us some time based on whatever date timeline is given for that section 5 to be added back for us to establish what the sections would be for that round. And then have folks, but it can be delayed as to if section 5 will be considered in round 1, 2, or 3. I would kind of suggest round 3, which would be due April 27th. That gives an entire month and a few days before any questions on that section would be due. Of course, we are still waiting to see what the format of the book is formally going to be. And then at that time, we'll be looking through to see what makes sense to put into those rounds, what will be feasible, what is digestible, and we'll adjust it accordingly. So I hope that helps.
And that has been motioned and seconded. So I don't know if anybody has any final questions or thoughts for conversation. If
I
not,
see
then I'll-
Commissioner Adams has his hand up. I don't know if he's still
Okay.
has a point there. Commissioner Adams?
So in my mind, I would like to see the administration not say that they're going to bring it Tuesday. I don't want to see them putting us back up against the wall like that. I think we could extend that date out further than that to get an answer back to us. That's all I have.
Yeah, if I can just interject on that to a point of clarification, we're not asking that the deadline for the budget book be presented on Tuesday. What we're asking for is the date that they're going to, that's what we're asking for, the date that they're going to be able to tell us when the budget book will be completed.
And that's exactly what I was talking about. I'm thinking we might need to give them a little more time than Tuesday. That's exactly what I'm talking about, to give us that date.
I think it might be helpful. President Elliott, in the past, whenever additional sections or changes to sections would come during the budget season, because this often happens, is that there are changes that need to be made to entire sections. Board members who have been here in the past will know they receive the budget book and then they'll get addendums or other inserts that come at a later time throughout the period. I think that to be perhaps an option. If folks want to consider that, so that it does not stall the presentation of the book as is, because it probably is already in production. Perhaps to present it on Tuesday, to not move past the deadlines that have already been voted on, and then if section 5 it does go through as a vote today, that be a deadline be provided for the provision of that section 5, and that come as an addendum.
Yeah, I don't have any problem with that. Vice President, what's your reaction to what Call you
I don't
just
want
said.
it as an addendum. I want it as part of the budget book. So again, if they want to, I'm open to them presenting it, to giving it to us with some time to review it, but doing it as the last deliberation. So I want to be clear, because I do want to Commissioner Adams' point, it's not that they're going to tell us, that they're going to give it to us on Tuesday, is that they do have to give us a timeline though, Commissioner Adams. They do have to, from now until Tuesday, that is ample time for those teams to get together, because Dr. Jallo's right, it is not just the finance team or Thierry by himself. It's supposed to be a team group effort. And so for those individuals to get together and give a realistic, timeline of getting it completed, but they can give us a date and say it's going to take us 3 weeks. If they want to reformat it to 1 pages out of 100 pages, if they're reformatting, some of those pages are 3 or 5 pages for a department and they want to reformat it to 1, that may take some time, but that may look fundamentally different. But again, we should be very transparent on how we spend dollars in central office, and they should already have that information if they built a budget. Just want to put that out there.
We do.
So if there are no more questions, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
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 Talia, did you collect the votes? Because I'm trying to go back and forth.
Yes, currently I have 6 ayes. If you would just call for any opposed.
Talia,
opposed?
I'm outside your office. If we're supposed to be visible when we vote.
Yes, you're supposed to be visible, so I'm not seeing you on screen at all.
I'm actually just
Pardon
outside
me,
your door.
I'm sorry?
Kelly,
I'm
I'm
not,
outside your door.
my door, I'm not at
Your
my,
door.
in my
Oh, you're
office.
not in your
Commissioner,
office.
no,
Oh, shoot.
I'm at home.
All right, I gotta figure out how to go visual. Sorry.
I'm
Well,
in my office. I'm in
yeah,
mine.
yep. I'm in the office as well, Commissioner Powell.
And
Kelly,
I do know that board staff, I know that Francine is also in the office as well. I apologize, I just wasn't, there you are. There you are, okay.
There you go.
Okay, how would you like to vote, Commissioner Powell?
Yeah.
Yes, affirmative. Okay, so the vote
Okay.
does pass 7-0 to put back section 5 into the budget book.
All right, thank you. I'm going to turn it back over to President Elliott to close the meeting. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, this has been a rough process, and I'm hoping that it's going to get easier, that we'll be able to discuss our lessons learned from this process. This has just been a rough process for many reasons, and so let me just thank everybody for being a part of this session. And let's move forward, making sure that we've got the right information, making sure that we have all that we need as a board and as a district to be able to provide our community with a budget that is understandable for them, with a budget that makes sense, with a budget that adheres to our priorities. And so with that, I want to thank everybody again. And I want to ask for a motion to adjourn this meeting.
motion.
Is there
Second.
a second?
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, the meeting is closed. Thank you, everybody, and everybody have a great day and a great weekend. Bye-bye.